Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Pineapple Headache with
Hi.
Madison and me. Today's episode will be a little bit more focused on someone at the request of this person because they wanted us to talk about their life on the podcast.
Yeah, we're gonna anonymously put this person on blast, apparently, but with support.
Yeah,
In a supportive
but
way.
with a more supportive way. But also, we're just gonna talk about kind of like mental health in general when we're going through such hard and difficult times, situations that really try us
You mean this
to a
entire
point of
past
stress.
year? Mayhaps?
Yeah, but for this person, it's like issues on top of what already is happening this year and for the general public. Yeah, so this person, I will give them the pseudonym of Love.
Okay.
And if people
Like
know this
tennis.
person, they know who this
Like
is.
tennis? What?
Yeah,
Why do they
like
say love in tennis? Like 40 love?
I don't know, but also I don't think of tennis when I think of the word
Well,
love.
when I think of the word love
But
as a
okay.
name, I don't even know where I'm going with this, but I don't. Tennis and love.
Okay. Anyway, this person, Love, has been going through a lot this past semester. They are currently living in Texas at the moment. And where should I even begin on the list of things that have been happening
Wow, what a
to
way to
them?
start.
Well, this person is a senior in college and they are about to graduate very soon. And their initial plan was to go to grad school for their degree. So they applied to different grad schools and one by one they rejected them. And the one that she was really hoping to go to was the last one to respond back. And then about a month ago, the school rejected them as well. So they got rejected from all the schools they applied to.
That's a tough one.
Yeah. On top of that, there's also there was the winter storm that was happening in Texas. We all know how that panned out for a lot of people.
Thank you, Ted Cruz.
And thank you, Greg Abbott, for all of your help. And Ted Cruz for going to Cabo for like a day.
Yeah, he had to chaperone his tween daughters or whatever.
Yeah. So this person had the winter storm, and then this person's family member also had some things happening in a hospital, and it happened unexpectedly. There's that. And then most recently, also they have been having some general boy troubles. I feel like I have to add that into the mix because
that's just
men do be messing sometimes.
The life of being in your 20s.
Yeah, and then most recently, this person who used to live in on-campus housing, because like I said, they are a senior in college. They used to live in this house that was very much like a chaotic fraternity.
But without the toxicity of Greek life?
But without the toxicity
of the white men of Greek life?
Well, yeah, okay, well, I guess more like a sorority. You know what, I'm just gonna say this person used to live in a house full of other women, and so I guess I can now say that this is a woman.
Well, I feel like this is like Guess Who or whatever, like we're slowly whittling down.
But
specifications.
Well, I feel like I have to specify because like the house has such a very chaotic specific energy to them, you know? Like, yeah, that I think you cannot find in men. So it's like a loving household, but also very just random chaos happening every day. That's my description of that place of living. So obviously it's a very fun place to be in. Anyway, on their campus, they have a policy where you're not allowed to bring anyone inside the home, because of the coronavirus. And this person got caught bringing someone inside their home, and one of the RAs reported it, and it was just kind of a case of wrong place, wrong time, because usually they would try and bring people in, and, they have, like, the hookup with all of the other RAs because they're all friends, And this person got caught and thought they would just end up with a warning or something because, like, how can you just lose housing like that?
Yeah.
Anyway, long at the end of the story, the dean of students said that they have to leave their housing situation and move back home without any
Ooh.
refund. Or if they wanted to, they could move out of their house to not the most favorable living conditions on campus with a housing cost increase and a meal cost increase when there's only 2-ish months left in the semester.
Wow. What a deal.
So all of this has just been building one on top of the other, and this person is just really going through it.
I could see why. That's a lot to deal with over the course of, like, what, 1 month? Like, that all kind of happened just in 1 or 2 months?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
2021.
On top of that, again, we're also on top where it's still a pandemic. Like a lot of things there's still like career uncertainty, like job uncertainty and all that.
Everything
so,
is uncertain. That's a lot. So how is this person coping?
the last I've talked to them, I've only seen them in bed and just trying to make it through the
Aww.
day. But I think they're gradually getting better, and I think they're still in like the processing period because I mean, with all of this stuff happening to you, like I would feel exhausted
I don't know. I feel like I just feel
and
defeated.
tired.
Just kind of like life keeps knocking
Yeah.
you down.
Yeah, maybe God just has some jokes that she has yet to laugh at.
God's got jokes.
Yeah, so obviously this person is going through a lot, and a lot of the responses to this person's situations kind of vary because it's kind of like, oh, like how do you make this person feel better in their situation? And this person is a young adult, so of course there are older people who like want to help them and like give their words of wisdom, but a lot of people in her life have just been telling her to just feel better and don't be sad, be
Oh,
happy.
because everybody knows those words are the magic words
And
that cure this stuff.
to be thankful, and of course they tell her to pray.
Oh wow. Whenever everybody's so quick to be like, just pray on something, but do people ever consider that God is literally just sitting on the other side being like, can you just get up and figure it out yourself or do action? Like, I feel like so many people are just so quick to be like not this person, but like the people who are so strong in this whole just pray about something. And it's like, what if God's literally just sitting there like, can you just take accountability yourself and figure it out? Like, I can't
Well,
swoop in
yeah.
and do everything.
I think I think the first thing, like first things first, I think this person needs to like process all of the feelings that they're
Yes.
having. Like I don't think it's not like you can easily bounce back from something like this, and I feel like it'd be more unhealthy to just kind of move forward without taking the time to really feel what you're feeling in those moments. Otherwise, it just kind of becomes a bottled up
Mm-hmm.
mess. Those feelings kind of just linger on before the next big thing happens, and it just builds on top of each other.
You need to take some time with yourself, I think. Just think about it
Yeah.
all. But also don't want to get too deep into that slump, too. Because then it gets harder to get out.
But I don't know. I think it's like one of those things. Well, at least like for me personally, when the moments when I get stressed or like, well, when I'm upset or like annoyed, I feel like I really bring the room down with my
Your energy?
mood. Yeah, I feel like I radiate such very strong energy when I feel upset or annoyed at something, like genuinely, because I don't think it happens that often.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you can
Oh
easily
my god.
tell more so,
Yes.
especially like living with me when I just don't feel like I'm
When you
up
just become a
for,
blob of existence.
yeah.
Yes. I
Mm-hmm.
recognize it well. And I'm just like, okay.
Yeah, but I think for like me, it's like one of those things where I just need to like take the time to like think and like feel it all the way through to the point where it's like, okay, well, now I have to actually take action because no one's gonna fix this problem
Mm-hmm.
or like do anything with it because the person who's gonna feel it most is me, so it's up to me to do what I can or how I would react to the situation. But in this case, in the current stage of where this person is now with everything that's happening through, I definitely think they just need to take time to like really identify where the feelings are rooted in.
That and like taking time to also just take care of themselves and do some like self care, do things that like they like or that make them happy and stuff too. To just kind of mitigate all that. But it is very hard to do when we're all just in this collective trauma of pandemic also. I feel like that has made it a lot harder for like processing just individual negative experiences because then it's like it always feels like there's this greater context of like, well, everybody else is having to deal with this whole thing happening. It almost feels like any individual personal problems you can have are like, well, that's nothing compared to people dying or whatever. But it's like when you do that, when it's like when you fall into that like line of thinking, it's like not really helping yourself either because that's just further putting off processing everything and just kind of accepting
it's not really productive.
Yeah, like it doesn't really do anything to help you either because it also just brings you farther down because you're like, oh yeah, the world sucks, so that just sucks on top of everything. And it's like you just have to find a way to like the healthy balance of like acknowledging that is like, you know, that's reality right now. It's just a lot of things are messed up, but then still taking the time and space to like process, you know, your own stuff and acknowledging that you can have your own stuff that's like messing with your life specifically outside of, you know, everything else happening to everybody else. Like that doesn't discount that or like mean that that is not happening to you.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, like I feel like when you do things to like compare each other's traumas and stuff, I think it just adds a layer of like you're basically like guilt tripping yourself.
Yeah, it's like
or like whoever is doing that to you will like guilt trip you.
Self gaslighting in a way, which I know that's kind of become a buzzword that everybody kind of uses not correctly, but it's just like kind of convincing yourself that like, no, I'm just crazy, or no, I'm just blowing it out of proportion, or, you know, no, I'm just XYZ. And it's like when you do that, it's just making it worse for like your brain to like process it all.
Right. And it's like, I mean, like there's a reason you're feeling the way that you do. Like obviously this situation or whatever happened has like made you feel a certain way. So like I feel like the only correct way to get through it is to just go through the feeling.
Yep.
And then like kind of organize that feeling into like where is this coming from? Like, okay, what do I do with this feeling? And then how do I like move forward with this feeling?
Yeah.
Because once it happens, it's like not like you can undo whatever happened or like change whatever happened. Like you just kind of have to live with it.
Yep.
And that's how you become stronger.
What doesn't kill powerful. You makes you stronger. I don't even know the other words. Something, something. No, you just have to live, laugh, love your way through it all.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Those are the magic words to curing everything.
Well, yeah, well, I was gonna ask you because I know, like, when you were in college, you were in a certain advocacy group that focused on, like, mental health.
Just a little bit, yeah. Yes, I was in a group focusing on ending the stigma against mental health / mental illness and all that.
Yeah, so, like, do you want to just talk about it a little bit more?
Yeah, well, it sucks because it's, like, I feel like I haven't, like, my time with that group, unfortunately, also ended with the pandemic, so I don't really know what the approach with, like, during pandemic times is as much with them. I mean, I'm sure they're figuring it out and stuff, but we're just kind of raised in this, like, culture, society, whatever you want to call it, of just, like, you know, since mental health can be often invisible because it's just like your feelings and stuff, and people think like everybody just has this magic control over like their feelings, and it's like that's not how it works. And it's like with really serious situations where you have actual like diagnosed like mental illnesses and stuff, like that's literally it's literally an illness because that means that there's some sort of chemical imbalance like in your brain, like something in your brain is actually medically having problems. And that's like, you know, just because the treatment for that kind of medical problem is like, you know, talk therapy or something doesn't mean it's like, you know, anything like to discount. And I think I think therapy has become a lot more accepted now too, just for people in general, for processing anything, regardless of if they actually have some diagnosed thing or not, which I think is a very useful tool for people to utilize, especially people who are still in college, because I know for depending on your school, but I know like at our school it was like, you know, your tuition's like covering that stuff. So it's like pretty much free, quote unquote, to access that resource
Mm-hmm.
and to use it. So it's like if you have the ability to do that, even if it's like virtually, I would say definitely try to go for that, because that can be a really great tool for like processing stuff. Because like honestly, just having a third party that you can talk out loud to about stuff, who's not in any way involved in your life, who's not a friend, who's not a family member, who's not a community member, who doesn't know you as any of these kinds of like, you know, what any of the hats you wear, like having that third party that's just kind of neutral to just really focus on, you know, unpacking stuff with you can be a very nice tool for processing all that. So I would definitely recommend that to a person in this kind of situation where it's like a lot of stuff is piling on at once. Also, because it's just like when it's like multiple things going on too, I feel like having a therapist type person can help you kind of break each thing down like individually and kind of like tackle it, not having to like feel like you're tackling all of the problems at once, you know, just kind of taking the moment to breathe and like separately address each problem and then figure out
Mm-hmm.
the necessary thing for each one. So yeah, everybody go to therapy.
Yeah, I'll just like speak on my own personal experience. I won't go too much into it because obviously it's therapy, like that's very confidential, and like that's a lot to do. But like based on my experiences, like I was going through a lot. Like I really felt a lot in my sophomore year because I really went through like sophomore slump
Yeah.
at the time. So I don't know. I always feel like, you know how you were saying how therapy is like considered like a bad thing, like it's meant for people who have like issues, usually like how people talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was always like, oh, I don't know. It's like it's not like I have like my problems. I always saw that my problems weren't worth talking to someone
Mm-hmm.
about, and I'm definitely one of those people who likes to, not likes to, but tends to bottle a lot of my emotions in.
Yes.
And like, I feel a lot of emotions very intensely when when the moment happens. So it's like, it was like very unhealthy, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I know a lot of the times before therapy, I would just bottle it in because, you know, that's how you're taught to like, that's like your indication of like, be a strong person. Like, if you're a strong person, then you don't need anyone else to talk to about it. You can just deal with it on your
Mm-hmm.
own. When actually it ends up being vice versa, because I feel like first making that call to schedule an appointment is like pretty hard. And also with LMU was kind
Oh
of
my god.
weird because you had to
You
like
could only
call
do it in
someone.
person or by phone. There was no online appointment system. And I was like, good job alienating anybody who, you know, because of their circumstance, might not be able to make a phone call for this or like talk to
Yeah.
a person to get to this point.
When I made that call, like it was actually like pretty scary and nerve-wracking to do because like I don't know exactly what this entails. Like what is
Mm-hmm.
therapy? Exactly. At the time, I was just going through so much where I was like, I need to talk to someone about this. And it's like, I'm not gonna like talk to Madison about all of these feelings that I'm gonna have because it's a lot. And also, I thought like I'd rather not talk about it with, again, it's like having like that third party who's like disconnected from
Yeah.
it. It sounds a lot nicer. So yeah, I like did therapy for a little bit and like I basically had kind of like this anxiety within me that it was very hard to like shake out and like rattle. Not like I was like diagnosed with anxiety, but I just had a lot of general
Yeah, like,
anxiousness whenever
mm-hmm.
I reacted to certain things. So I met with my therapist and like I only met for what, about like an hour like every
Yeah.
week. And so basically it's like what Madison said. It's like it helps, the therapist is there to help you break down your feelings and to better understand them more. So part of doing that is that you have to open up about your
Mm-hmm.
feelings, which I had never done before. So it was very uncomfortable and like very scary to do. But when you have that person, like this third party telling you, like asking you questions of like, do you really believe this is true? Or like, what can you give me like very concrete details of like what was happening in the moment versus how you felt and stuff? It was like basically giving you another perspective of like, oh, things aren't what they seem to be in my head and
Mm-hmm.
kind of stuff like that. And so it's like you basically give your therapist this jumbled ball of yarn
Oh,
in a
okay, we got
tangle.
an analogy.
Yeah. And they basically go like they get the end of the strand and they basically ask you questions and have a conversation of like, okay, so where is this feeling coming from? Like, why do you feel this way? Did this feeling actually correspond with what actually happened and how the situation went? And so like at the end of it, you have this untangled mess and you're just like, wait, the situation isn't what I thought, which again, like this is coming from someone who was having anxiety. So like I tended to blow up situations in my head worse than what they actually
Mm-hmm.
were. So it was like, oh wait, things actually didn't happen the way I thought they did, and I'm okay, so I can keep going and move forward. And yeah, my therapist just kind of gave me tools to like if ever I had a moment of anxiousness to like make me stop and reconsider like what that feeling is. And to be able to like acknowledge that feeling and be like, will this feeling control the way in which I react and stuff like that. So that was my therapy
Wow.
experience.
Snap, snap, snap for sharing.
Thank you. I'm very grateful for it. And of course it was a very hard thing to do because again, I just am not a person to open up about a lot of things. So even the fact that I'm opening up about my therapy
Yeah.
experience is obviously like a growth in me between sophomore year and like
Now.
now.
Oh
But
my gosh, it's been so long.
yeah,
It's been like 3
I
years.
know. And I don't know, for this person, like, yeah, I think therapy is a good idea. I just also think like talking to someone about it is always good
Yeah, even just
because
starting by
again, like
talking to
there's another
friends.
perspective.
Yeah.
But like also like it depends on the perspective you talk
Yeah.
to. So like the people who have told them like, "Oh, just like feel better." Like you need to find
Is
someone
not
who's
that
going to validate the
perspective.
feelings.
Or like sometimes too
Yeah.
that I like is like I'm like, I guess I'm fortunate that I have like, I have my college friends, but I also have like friends from back home and stuff. So like sometimes just talking to one to the like if I'm having something happening with one of those, going to the other to talk about it because then it's like there's still friends that I trust who still know me a lot and I can like talk to about these things, but they don't necessarily like really know the people that I'm talking about or like the situation or anything like that. So it's like that's kind of like a different way of getting like a not as neutral as a therapist, obviously, like that kind of, not that neutral of a perspective, but like at least like a safe perspective that I can still like turn to be like, hey, what's
Mhm.
happening?
Well, yeah.
Or just needing to
Well, it's
vent
also
sometimes too.
interesting. Yeah, well, it's like also interesting like the people who tell her to just feel
Yeah,
better or
like
just
it's
like
just
just
so
pray about it or tend to be
unproductive.
like older
Yeah, and it's
people.
like, did they never feel like this when they're like our age? Because I highly doubt that. I'm pretty sure that they've felt, similar.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like I can see like, when I look back on like my teenage self, I guess, and like seeing how teenagers younger than me act, and I can be like, oh yeah, I can like, now I'm removed enough from that situation that I feel like, maybe I was kind of blowing things up sometimes or whatever, but it's like that's not just because I might have I looking back on myself that might apply to me. That doesn't apply to all teenagers in all circumstances. So it's like it's not fair to make that kind of assessment for like every younger person, just because they're not you.
Yeah, I feel like older people have just lived such a longer life where they're like, "Oh, your problems are not as much to the weight I carry on my shoulders." Or at least that's how I feel a lot
Mm-hmm.
of the times when I feel like older people, when they try to make you feel better, it feels more like they're kind of talking down to you because, they're like
Maybe
older.
because they just never
Um,
process their actual emotions because they're probably like,
or,
I'm just gonna
or
force it
that
down and I'm
too.
just not gonna deal with it, and then that just creates problems for other people and
Well,
stuff.
yeah, well, because it's also a thing of like, who exactly taught me, like, to bottle my
Yeah,
feelings is the first question.
like
So,
that stuff just kind of gets passed down from like how it starts in the home and like how the home environment is and how that and like all that kind of stuff. So it's like you can usually trace things back to the source.
But to this person, it's like, you don't have to feel better
Oh
right
yeah, no.
now.
And also like another thing too is like I'm one of those people who like I've just based on just for me reflecting on just stuff that's happened in the past, like it can actually take a long time for stuff to hit me. Like I feel like it wasn't until last year that I started really processing some of the stuff that happened like our big friend drama stuff that happened with a certain somebody. Like
Mm-hmm.
what was that? 2019? Like I feel like I've always been the kind of person who it's like beyond like bottling it up, just not even like acknowledging something's happening. So I like a repression suppression thing of just like I'm just not even gonna acknowledge this is happening, so I can just move about my day. But then it comes back to get you later on. You'll be so far removed from the situation, and then you're just kind of like, wow, that like happened, and I just kind of went with it. Even though like now when I think about it, I'm like not that cool about it, and I wish like I could have done XYZ differently or took the time back then to really process stuff and all that. But like everybody's brains are different and everybody has like a different way of just like processing stuff, so like that can happen too. Or
Mm-hmm.
having going through a whole thing of processing and kind of feeling like you're okay or better, but then maybe you kind of fall back into like, okay, now I'm not okay. Like that happens too. Especially now with the way the world is, it can be very up and down for a long period of time.
Everyone's timeline is different. Obviously, everyone goes through everything differently and reacts
Mm-hmm.
to things differently.
Yeah, and just like
As long as you're not repressing it,
is that at
then
me? Yeah, you know what happened yesterday? Yesterday my grandma broke my Pokemon chopsticks while she was washing them. And I love, like, it
oh,
was an accident, but like, and I think it's because I overused them and I would use them on really hot food. So like, and they're made of resin. Like I probably should have not used them as much. But I was so obsessed with these Pikachu chopsticks, and then she broke them since on an accident, and then she called me into the kitchen. She was like, "Oh, I broke them." And I was just like, "Oh." And then like I had to go run an errand. So then 10 minutes later I was sitting in my car and I was like, "Okay, wait. Like how did I actually feel about the fact that this little
mm-hmm.
happiness I get from these chopsticks is gone now?" And I was like, okay, now I need to actually think about this and be like, oh yeah, that sucks. Because then I was like, wow, I bet my grandma was probably like, why didn't she react? She was probably like, is my granddaughter broken? Like that's probably what she's thinking. And I was just like, yeah, I guess I should take a moment to like think about that. But then it was okay. I solved my problem because then I found them on eBay. So I already ordered a new
Oh,
set, but
okay.
like I had to pay a lot of money because they're from Japan. But anyways, like just stuff like that where you just kind of take a moment to check in with yourself and be like, okay, this thing that just happened 10 minutes ago, like, is the reaction that I gave to like, because I think with my thing, it's always like with other people, I'm just like no reaction or like any of that. So it's like taking a moment to check in and be like, okay, wait, let's take a second, let's breathe, let's think about this, think about how it made you feel. Forget what the other people who are in the situation or who were witnesses, like, forget that they exist for a second, just to, like, take a moment to yourself and be like, if I was completely alone and this just happened, how would I actually, like, react? Or what would I actually do right now to try to, like, mitigate how I'm feeling and stuff? So, just stuff like that. Just being in constant conversation with yourself. I feel like some kind of
Yeah,
wellness like
that's the thing.
influencer, just like take care of yourself, do some yoga or whatever.
Well, yeah, I think that's like part of the thing of like being aware of your feelings is that you have to be able to catch them and like
Mm-hmm.
look at them and be like, what exactly are
Yeah.
you? And I also wanted to add because this person has also said people have been giving them advice, but this person hasn't asked for advice
So
from them.
unprompted, unsolicited. That's the
Unsolicited.
word.
Yeah. Obviously, like the things that we're telling to this person, like these are ways in which we have made our way through difficult
Yeah,
situations.
just
Like this is just from
navigating.
our own experiences. Yeah, like these are just suggestions or whatever for you to think about. This is not telling you what you should do. Like obviously you have to figure it out on your own
Yeah.
with the help of
And
other
sometimes just
people.
comparing notes about this kind of stuff can help you, like, just hearing how other people deal with
Yeah.
their own stuff and being like, oh, maybe that'll work for me. Maybe it won't. I don't know.
But how would you feel if you were given like
Unsolicited. Oh my god. I
unsolicited
feel like that
advice
happens,
and
like, to everybody all the time. Because I feel like a lot of times people get this, like, I feel like people just assume someone venting to them is an invitation for advice and stuff, which I think is not always the case. Like, I don't know, maybe part of it is just because, like, so much of, like, my last, like, 10 years or so, as much as I've, like, had interactions and friends, like, in person in real life and stuff, I've also spent a lot of time just literally only talking to people via text and stuff on the internet. And so, like, a lot of those conversations usually will be more, like, direct of just, like, I just need a vent, or can I ask your advice on this and stuff. And it's like in real life, you know, some you just will be having a conversation with someone, and then it just might naturally turn into like a venting session or whatever. And then I feel like then it's not really clear if this person's asking for advice or not. So I feel like just it's like communication thing a lot of times of just like, you know, recognizing that just because someone's suddenly telling you about their problems doesn't mean they're asking you for advice. And like you can always ask them if they want advice. The person who's venting can always say at the beginning, I just want to talk about it, I don't want any advice, I just need someone to vent to. And just like making sure like both parties are kind of on the same page with that, because like because you know depend like the person you might, you know, depend on that you can vent to is like somebody who is always really good at listening. Like they might not be the person you have in mind who could actually really give you the advice you need, or like relevant advice to the situation. So I guess just like making sure like both parties are like pretty clear on like, is this just venting, is this asking for advice and stuff. And just like, you know, if the person hasn't really made it clear that they want advice or like indicated that, maybe like ask before you go in that direction, like, do you want advice, like, you know, what do you want me to tell you what I think, kind of thing, rather than just going head first without even thinking, being like, okay, here's what I would do.
Yeah.
Like just checking in first.
Yeah, I think now I just kind of assume that if someone wanted to talk to me about something, I'd just be there to listen. Because I feel like that's always something people would want. They just want someone who would listen to them for what you don't want someone who's going to, if you have like something you're going through, you obviously don't want someone who's going to talk over you or like not listen to the whole thing, what you're going through, like fully. So, yeah, it's like you said, like first I think you should like just listen. I don't know, like I tend to like ask
Yes,
questions
I was
here
just about
and
to
there
say,
just to
being
be
like an
like,
engaged listener, like showing that you're
uh-huh.
listening by still like, you know, being part of the conversation and like asking questions. Like, because there's
Yeah.
like, you know, there's giving advice, but it could also just be like if someone's venting to you and you're just asking questions, like that alone can help them like kind of figure it out and like, you know, unpack it. It's just like having not only someone who's listening, but somebody who will ask like things and stuff, and then maybe that will get them thinking about it in a different way too, which that doesn't require advice, that just requires an engaged listener.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, it like when you like ask questions, it like helps them kind of think differently or deeper about the thing that they're going
Mm-hmm.
through and like in the long run and it like gives it's kind of like reflecting, in therapy or the therapist is supposed to be like a mirror to you. So it's like bouncing it back on the person to be like, "Oh,
Yeah, and just like asking too if there are like ways that the person who's venting to, like asking if there are ways you can support them, being like asking like if you can come, well I guess with COVID that's hard, like asking if you could come see them, asking if you could like, I don't know, Venmo them some money to go buy something and cheer themselves up, or sending them a care package, or just doing like
mhm.
small acts of like kindness and friendship just to kind of, you know, bring some happiness into like whatever they're like, you know, going through and stuff, without being like a overbearing
Yeah.
presence demanding answers and solutions and resolutions and all that and stuff. And just like being making sure that the person who's like going through the whole thing is the one that's like the in charge of like how you're like kind of like responding to it, if that makes sense.
Moving on to a question I just thought of.
Okay.
So like if someone were to tell you to just pray,
I think I would laugh, like I just laughed right now.
how would you really feel about
I
it?
feel like, well, like, because also I feel like when people say that, unless they like know me, well, first of all, at least for me specifically, like people who really know me know that I'm not an active prayer person. So, like, first of all, that would just tell me that they don't really know me, or they just assume that I, you know, do religion in a certain way, even though, like, I don't. And, like, for me personally, like, it's pretty clear that I don't really pray. Like, it's pretty, like, I'm not, like, trying to, like, still play the image of, like, being an active Catholic or anything for anybody who's in, like, that kind of situation. So, like, For me particularly, if somebody told me to just pray, I'd be like, do you even pay attention to him as a person? But if I was like, years younger and I was still in those like Catholic school settings where that was very like normalized as a reaction of like, oh, you're having a problem, just pray. I just feel like that person would not really, like, I'd be like, do you have a grasp on reality? Like, that sounds harsh. And I know prayer can be really powerful for people. I think mostly just because of I think it just, in the sense of meditating, where you're just spending quiet time by yourself, getting your thoughts together. Like, yes, that can be useful, but like, when it's framed as prayer, it's really framed as like, oh, clearly this problem is out of your control to fix, so you need to go ask the, intangible, invisible God that we all praise to fix it for you or to give you this guidance and stuff. And it's like, human situations are human made. That means that sometimes they can also be human fixed. And situations like this, where it's just people being people, means that, like, no amount of prayer is necessarily going to fix it. Like, you just kind of have to navigate it. And also, like, praying just because, like, you're experiencing a great, like, emotional time or, like, trauma and stuff, like, maybe it would be useful for the whole thing of meditating, where it's just putting you in that headspace of just quiet time, sitting still, praying, like, saying whatever, just doing that kind of thing. But I don't think you can, like, pray feelings away, if that makes sense. Like, you can't just pray.
Yeah.
You're not just gonna, you can't just say an Our Father and then just be like, wow, like, I don't feel anything anymore. Like, that's not how that works. And I, as someone who still believes in God, I feel like if he was here, he'd be like, that's literally not how humans work.
Well, it's interesting because I mean, you were raised like Catholic from the beginning, and I was raised Catholic like from the beginning. And growing up, I always thought like, oh, I just pray to God and all. That's how my problems are solved, because that's how they literally teach children how prayer
can
works.
you teach us real
But
problem solving skills instead? How about that?
Yeah, but it's like, as I've grown older and have wrangled with the question of faith and God as in my formative years, it's just been kind of like, well, now I kind of see prayer as, like you said, like a meditation.
Yeah.
Well, because like, how else are you guys supposed to tell me like, oh, pray these 10 Hail Marys and like this is basically like prayer to God? But like, if you like think about it, you're saying the same words over and over again, which is basically meditation, where you're putting yourself in this like mindful stasis of like, okay, I'm in this moment, what am I reflecting on, what am I thinking about? Like, that's what prayer should be. It should be you to just sit with yourself and to just kind of better understand things about yourself, because again, it's like, again, there's an intangible being that we cannot see or hear or touch, like in the sense of like a person. So like, you expect me to be like, yeah, I'm directly talking to God to pray my feelings away. Like, it's like you said, it's like so unrealistic.
Yeah, and I feel like it just does, like, I feel like it's kind of like, again, I would say that probably if God and Jesus were here, they would agree with me. I think personally, because I think a lot of times people think of it too as like, if you're praying and then in that time, like, like at least the people I feel like I grew up around, like in Catholic school and stuff, it was this whole idea of like, while you're praying and then the solution to something pops in your head, that's like God. And it's like, I feel like, honestly, I feel like that's kind of doing a disservice to yourself, being like, oh, the solution that I thought up of while I just had me praying, God put that in my head. I didn't come up with that by myself. And it's like I understand to an extent, but I feel like, it's not like, as much as like people should be taking accountability, people should also be taking credit. Like, if you are spending quiet time with yourself and just, focusing on an issue, and then, wow, your brain suddenly comes up with a new approach, a new solution, some kind of newfound thing, like, I don't think God just flipped a switch and put something in your head. Like, I don't think he would want people to go around thinking that he does that to people. Like, it's just like, what, the human brain is complicated and complex, and also, like, if you're putting in the effort to pray and think about it, and then that leads you to a solution or some kind of resolution or whatever, then that's kudos to you for putting in the time to work on it and come up with that solution. So, like, crediting it to God just putting some random thing, like, in your head and stuff, I feel like it's just kind of, like, belittling your own effort to try to do this thing. And I feel like it just kind of comes with this whole idea of, like, Catholic guilt and being like everything we are doing in our life has to be this great act of like repentance and repenting whatever and stuff. And it's like, as someone who went to Catholic school this whole time, has read the Bible, has done all the things to learn about God and stuff, that is just not the impression that I have ever gotten, is that he wants you to live this life of just being like, I'm sorry for everything, now can you please put all of my solutions to my problems in my head. That's like, there's no agency in that. Like, where's the agency? Humans were made to be like agents of their own fate and have free will. So like, if you are praying and then you're intensely thinking about something, and then during your time you're praying you come to a place of resolution, congrats, it's because you put in the time and effort to sit quietly and process your feelings. Like, give yourself credit for that. Own it. Like, you did that. That's nice. That's great. And like, praying got you in that headspace, which is cool. But I think just crediting everything to God is so like, it just ignores the fact that you have to put in work to like get to that emotional place, you know? Which I guess now we're kind of getting into a whole other topic entirely of just like religious trauma and stuff. But
I feel like I was just in my high school theology class. Wow, I feel like you just gave me a short essay on like prayer. That was
because it's like, and it's like, I just feel like so much of it, it's so easy to like, when you get really religious, to be like, I don't have to do anything because God will just do it. If I just pray, it solves my problems because this other person's gonna come and solve it. Or just being like, the only reasons these problems exist is because God is mad that people, like, no more of that. We are humans. We all live. We live for a limited time. There are human-made problems. They sometimes have human-made solutions. They sometimes don't have human-made solutions. That's just life. If God gave humans free will, then he's not going to be constantly stepping in to intervene and be like, oh, well, I'll just put thoughts in your head. Like, no, that's not how that works.
And it's like, if you think about prayer outside of a religious context, right? Like, there are different ways you can get into kind of that stasis or meditative state. Like, journaling is a form of prayer, but is not considered like prayer. But it does help you reflect on what exactly your feelings are. It's just in written word now.
Yeah, or like, couldn't an argument be made that anytime you're just enjoying your life, doing something you like, wouldn't God be happy that you're being happy? Like, couldn't that be a form of prayer? Because you're celebrating your life, that in this world that he created or whatever. Like, what more could a guy ask for? Like, he's like, wow, look at you living your life. Like, that's great.
Yeah. In the world that you're fully present in the world that was created
for you.
You are fully immersed in the world around you. Yeah,
and it's like, God died to give you this future. So we can either just sit and do nothing and just be like, well, he's mad, or he's gonna solve these problems, or we could just live our lives and make the best of it and have as much fun as we want, have as much celebrations as we want, and he can be like, yes, my sacrifice was worth it, because now all these people are leading these amazing lives and are overcoming all these obstacles and stuff, and they're still able to find joy in life.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, God just wants you to be human. And he just wants you to just like feel everything that he created.
And he probably wants to see you figure things out on your own and realize that you have come, like, you've been able to figure out stuff on your own, because that's such an empowering feeling. Like, once you've solved the feeling,
like a good father would.
The feeling of solving a problem is so like, wow, like, I just did that. Like, own it. He would want that. Maybe I should become a pastor.
Well, you can't do that in the Catholic Church.
Maybe just to leave. Guess I'm moving to another church. No, just kidding. I'm stuck here, I guess.
To this person going through these things, I hope what me and Madison has said has resonated with you in some way.
Yes, our attempts at human-made solutions.
Yeah, but like, you know, at the end of the day, you are human, and like, if you feel alone, like, there are at least 2 people who are supporting you through this podcast because you asked us to talk about requests on the podcast. Yeah. Not to say like life is life. Like, life is what it is. But what it is. Again, we were all created on this earth. We all have a life to live, and of course, like, a lot of bad things are happening right now, but you go at your own pace to what you feel. Yeah. And it's like,
at the end of the day, just take care of yourself.
Yeah.
You know, and life sucks right now. So, like, treat yourself. Go eat that extra candy. Go spend more time watching shows. Like, we're all just trying to cope with all this garbage, this constant stream of garbage just being, like, piled up on us right now. So it's, like, just, literally just the simple act of, like, still living is, like, revolutionary in itself.
And we're gonna end on that on this
My
week's
homily.
episode. Thank you to well, I guess I can't call you father, or I could call you father.
Yeah, okay.
Madison.
Yeah.
Pastor Madison, thank you for the homily.
Yeah. Don't forget to leave me
Reverend
money.
Reverend Madison.
Where's the donation baskets?
Oh, we don't accept donations. We are purely nonprofit.
But I need my government tax break from being religious.
No.
That's a whole separate issue.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Pineapple Headache from me and Reverend Madison.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else you want to say?
I'm trying to remember something we'd say in church. Go. What does the priest say at the
Lord be with you. And with
Lord
your
be
spirit.
with you, unless that's not your vibe, and that's totally fine. Good vibes be with you as you go on. Good health vibes as well.
Amen.
Yes, employment vibes for all my fellow unemployed college grads.
Amen.
Yeah. See, this is a great church service. This is already 10 times more exciting and relatable than Mass.
Okay. Well, I think this is just the beginning of Madison starting a whole new church.
Yeah, Scientologists, watch out. I'm gonna come beat you.
Well, thanks for listening, everyone.
Yes.
Goodbye.
See you at the next headache.